Just give a few more minutes for the board members to rejoin. Do one more bite of food. Once Tina and Selena rejoin us, we can restart. Just giving another minute for one more board member and one more newly appointed to-be board member to join us. We are running a few minutes behind here, so we might as well go ahead and start. Moving back into public session to this already started Board of Education meeting. And we'll start with the first session of public comment. Rachel, do we have anybody signed up to speak this evening?
No, not at this time, Jonathan.
Okay, we'll check back at the end of the meeting as well. Moving on to reports from me, I just want to say welcome back to everyone. I hope everybody had as much fun as I did on their summer vacation, assuming that you got a summer vacation. I know some of you worked all the time. Very excited to get schools back into session in just 1 week. I want to welcome, I don't want to mess this up, Divya Dorerajan to the Board of Education in an interim position until for 1 year. We met with 3 wonderful candidates this evening and really had a wonderful problem to have, which is determining who best fits this board's needs at this time. We could not have gone wrong with any of the, there's Divya now. We could not have gone wrong with any of the candidates, but we are very excited to have Divya join us. Welcome aboard, Divya. And if you don't mind, could you tell me one time and one time only how to pronounce your last name correctly?
Not sure if you can hear me.
We can.
Okay. My last name is Dorerajan. It is a little Dorerajan.
I did pretty well before you came on board, before you came on the call. Welcome, Divya. We're happy to have you. And as I was saying, we had 3 wonderful candidates to choose from, and we're happy to have you aboard. That being the case, we also do have to, I will be announcing over the next week, a new chair for the Finance Committee, as well as new appointments to the Finance Committee, the Strategic Planning Committee, and the Policy Committee. I will be reaching out to each of you to discuss potential changes, as well as to you, Divya, to find out where you would be best suited to join us. And that's it. Welcome back, everyone. Excited to get back to work and excited to hear what Dr. De Silva has for us in her report.
Jonathan, I'm sorry to interrupt, but Selena contacted me. She's trying to get in and says she can't.
All right, let me just check that out. Tom, if she's contacting you, just make sure that she's using the webinar feature, not the Zoom that we were on before. Just in case.
Okay, I'll let her know. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. And we'll resend the webinar invitation to Selena just in case. And we'll actually do the same for Liz just in case so that it's handy. We knew there were a lot of steps today. So, all right. So welcome, Miss Dorai Rajan. Did I get it? I need to say it faster, but.
I would prefer if you could address me as Divya because Dorai Rajan is actually my dad's first name.
Ah, Divya.
I don't respond if you say Dorai Rajan. Usually it's Divya I respond to.
Okay, well then Divya it is. We like that you respond. Welcome. And we're glad you're here.
Very much.
So I actually was laughing a little while ago. I know that our kids are preparing their backpacks and getting ready for the start of school. Our students in grades K through 9 will be welcomed back on the 29th. Students in grades 10 through 12 on the 30th. For those of you that don't know, we transitioned back our 9th graders to our high school without having our more senior members of the high school class being there, allowing them an opportunity to transition, get comfortable, understand the high school a little bit. The past couple of weeks have been incredibly busy for our team. You'll hear more about all the facilities work at our next Board of Ed meeting on September 12th, I think it is. We didn't want to take Joe away from that work to present tonight. So we have certainly been busy, and I know Joe and our facilities department will have those buildings sparkling for the first day of school. It's like a little miracle that happens overnight. So when you look today, you might say, how is that possible? But then all of a sudden, poof, on the first day of school, they are just right for our kids. So a big thanks to the entire facilities department. It's no small task over the summer, especially when we have programs across our schools such as Bridge or ESY. We had our administrator retreat over the course of 2 days last week, filled with a lot of content for sure, but also some fun, some laughter. We heard a lot about legislation, security updates, draft district priorities, a lot of heavy lifting for our administrative team, but all exciting. Our theme, Ridgefield Imagines, was intertwined throughout our work. Then we welcomed back our new teachers on Thursday, Friday, and today. And our new teachers, what a great group. When you meet them, you'll understand why we're saying that. Their spirit is high. I just remember one of our new teachers saying to me that he is going to try his very best and he won't let us down. Just imagine how that feels. He just won't let us down. And actually, when you meet him, you believe it. He's not going to let us down. Great, great group of folks. So we're excited to have them. Our teachers, our more seasoned teachers, are coming back for their first day of setting up their classrooms tomorrow. And then we have a big day on Wednesday morning with convocation, which is a tradition in almost every school district in Connecticut, where you bring your entire faculty and staff back, welcoming, celebrating new members, seasoned members, really sets the tone for the year. So we're incredibly excited about that. And then we have professional learning filling up our Thursday full day. So all good events, incredibly busy. And we will welcome back our students, like I said, on the 29th and 30th. So don't be surprised if you see Joe Moritz riding a school bus. right, just kidding, not Joe, but me and Corey and Liz and maybe some others. So all exciting stuff. Welcome back.
Thank you. Committee chairs, I don't believe we had any committee meetings over the summer, but do we have any liaison reports to be read tonight? No, I didn't think so. I think this is everybody's. Oh, Sean, you got something for us.
Yeah, well, for not for committee, but for outside organization, Prevention Council, we had our first meeting of the year already. A lot of activities up and coming. We will be at the holiday stroll safety day. Safety day is September 18th, by the way, at East Ridge. If you want to have your kids come and touch a fire truck and learn about cool stuff, but Prevention Council will be there. But look forward to lots of interesting things every single month this year.
Thank you, Sean. Any other liaisons? Tina?
Jonathan, I just wanted to add to Sean, Prevention Council has an event coming up, Sean, on September 7th.
Right, September 7th is the vigil. That's correct. Unfortunately, it coincides with a couple of town meetings the same night. I wish it didn't, but it does.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we can move right into discussion items, starting with the summer bridge update.
Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Gillette, who'll be presenting on what Summer Bridge looked like this year and how it ended.
Great. Good evening, everybody. So good to see all of you. I hope you had a wonderful summer. I did get a little vacation, which I very much enjoyed. John Mansfield, if you could put up the slides. So tonight I'm going to give you a quick update on the Summer Bridge extension 22. This was our second year, and it really did feel like the second time around. So I'm really excited to share all the different elements. Next slide, please. So really, before I start talking about any of the programs, there is an unsung hero at the Bridge program, and that is Christine Melograno. She is my assistant and really the assistant for the entire curriculum department, and she is in charge of all the ordering and all the payroll. And as you can imagine, a program that provided fun to almost 1,200 students is a lot of work. So I just want to say a special thank you to Christine, because we know how hard she works. So I'm going to take you through each of the different programs that we presented this summer, and I'm going to talk to you about how they were a little bit different than last year. But really, in the end, ultimately, the feelings that we got out of this, the way that the kids felt and the way that the teachers felt and the experiences we created are something that we continue to be very, very proud of. So this year, we had our elementary bridge program again. It was very similar to last year, project-based learning for our students. From the feedback from our students, we did even more projects. So we really hid the academics into what they were creating and building and imagining. A special thank you to the directors of the Elementary Bridge program, Kristen Kleiss, Jen Hildebrand, and Ginny Weisberger. They were amazing at setting the tone and the climate for the day. And here you can see some of the projects that they engaged in. And if you look over on the side, you actually see Kristen and Jen there on Crazy Hair Day. Kristen really can make her hair stand right up like that. Just having fun with the kids. The difference this year was that we had a 1-week experience instead of a 2-week experience, but we were able to offer that experience to all interested students. So the Elementary Bridge program was another great success. One of the best quotes from an elementary teacher was that teaching bridge is what she always imagined that teaching would feel like. And that's really good, but that's also something we want to imagine all the time if we can. But that project-based learning and the excitement that the kids felt every day is really something special. Next slide, please. New programming that we started this year was called Jumpstart. And what it did was it mirrored what our high school students have been able to engage in the last couple of years. And actually before Bridge, this was an existing program. It was called High School Readiness, and it was designed by a group of teachers at the high school. And what that program did was it introduced rising 9th graders to the high school experience. So there was a little bit of prep study skills, a little executive function work, but then a lot of fun and a lot of time to engage in the school and get to know staff. So we realized that that is something that is equally essential for our rising 6th graders. Our rising 6th graders go from 6 individual schools into 2 bigger schools. So we really wanted to give that opportunity to our rising sixth graders. So there was a Jumpstart program at Eastridge and at Scottsridge. Our directors were Amanda Johnson and Shane Peters, who are coming back, who came back and worked with us again this year. And what we saw was just such a nice mix of fun, new friendships, fun activities, scavenger hunts, locker races. They really love the lockers and opening them up and closing them and then seeing how fast they can get in. So they had such a great time, and the feedback from the parents was really overwhelming. And we look forward to being able to offer this again, both to rising middle school students and rising high school students. Next slide, please. So last year we got some very direct feedback from our middle schoolers. They did like Bridge, but there were things that they did not like about the structure of Bridge last year. Specifically, what they liked were all of the extended projects. So what we decided to offer this year was intensives, both at the high school and at the middle school level. So an intensive is a course created by a teacher, multidisciplinary, project-based. You can see some cooking here and some, believe it or not, rocket building. I was nervous every day, but everything went fine and the kids had an amazing time. Teachers put together proposals, and then we create these experiences for kids where they are only engaging in that one project for 3 or 4 days. So we offered that to our middle schoolers and to our high schoolers. And what we also did this year was we combined our rising sixth graders in with the middle school kids, and we combined our rising ninth graders in with the high school kids, because we realized last year that they did not want to go back to middle school if they had just graduated, and they did not want to go back to the high school if they had just graduated from middle school. So that was the middle and high school intensives. Again, a special thank you to Eileen Stewart from the high school, who continues to just rock that program and get teachers really engaged in creating experiences for kids that are wide and diverse. One of my favorites was true crime, because that is one of my secret passions, and what a great course to engage in over a couple of days. Next slide, please. So we had almost 1,200 students engaging in the courses that I just talked about. We also had an additional group of students engaging in course recovery this year. And it's a little bit harder to classify because some students recovered more than one course. We are also able to offer opportunities for students to complete incompletes that they had gotten at the end of the year. So they were able to come in and make up tests or make up assignments with this super supportive course recovery staff, which is a group of talented teachers from the high school supported by the counseling department. Special thank you to Jen DiGiulio and Ashley Brooksbank, who just make it fun. We were so excited this year to be able to host this at the high school in the LLC, because that environment was just great for all the small group work and the interactions between the students. So this was the other course that we offered again this year. And there really wasn't a change from last year, but we did continue to be able, through the use of Edmentum, which is an online platform, really offer any course that students needed. So we weren't limited to just math and just ELA. So there are a variety of science courses, social studies courses that we were able to offer while also staffing with a small staff. Next slide. So that was just a quick update on the different programs that we had at Summer Bridge Extension. We were just so pleased to be able to offer that to our families and to our students again. Our staff really enjoys these relationships that they build with the students during that time. And I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Who wants to start us off with questions? Sean.
First of all, I've said it before, I'll say it again. I love this program. Last year, I wasn't sure you guys could pull it off on short timeline. You did it. This year, it appears that you've adapted a little bit and took in some input from last year and learned a lot, which is great. My big thing is learning loss and recovery from that. The course recovery is awesome. What was the uptake on that? What did that look like? How many kids did we help? And does that continue throughout the year, or is that just a summertime only thing?
I can share more explicit with you because I have my breakdown is by subject. So it was around 30 students, but then that doesn't count. It doesn't break out the students who came in and were able to complete the incompletes. That's something I feel like we really got a lot of traction on this year.
That's huge.
Right, which makes a big difference for a student on their transcript to be able to come in on their own time. And these teachers are so open and available to our students. So approximately 30, but I can give you a breakdown by course at another
Bravo.
time.
That's 30 more than we helped a couple of years ago. That's
Yeah.
great.
Yes, absolutely.
You had a question as well? Or Amy? I saw a couple hands. Tina, go ahead.
If Amy, I thought Amy was before me. Oh, okay, sorry. No, I mean, I should have, I really need to learn how to click this faster because Sean always asks the questions or says it for me. So just thank you for doing that. And I had the same question. I think it's great that you're adapting, you're listening to the needs. And this year, did you do the same thing? Did you ask for feedback? Okay, so is there a time, will you share it with the board? I mean, if it will lead to changes, whatever you think is best. I'm just curious what everybody else thought, or the people who attended this thought.
Really, we were blown away by the feedback from Jumpstart. I've never seen such high praise across the board. Because usually there's something at some point that somebody's going to offer as a suggestion. So the popularity of that course makes us, we had about 80 kids in each middle school enrolled. So that's not the entire class. We could get more of the class next year. So we're going to work with our elementary schools and work on and our PTAs to advertise that better, just to make sure that more kids can be a part of it because of the high praise. In terms of other feedback, there's nothing that we've seen yet that would make us alter like we did this year. I thought those middle school kids gave us some really good ideas, and their feedback on the courses was high because they got to choose what they wanted to do for that time instead of having to do some of what they liked and then maybe some things that they didn't like so much. So I think that's about it in terms of feedback.
Amy, do you have a question?
I was just going to say, I heard such positive feedback from my own son about the locker races. So maybe that's something you all need to do too, and put a video out there of everyone competing of locker races in the middle school. Sounds a lot of fun.
Yes, that staff made it really, really engaging. I mean, nothing better than super fun middle school teachers who will just have fun with kids around a building in the summers. And they got to make nice relationships, not only with each other, but with teachers that they're going to see in a few days.
Any other questions on the bridge update?
Jonathan, if I can, just a quick note with respect to next year, because Corey's already alluded to that. We've been very thoughtful about our ESSER funding. As you know, I'm quite protective of that money because we do use it primarily for bridge, but we also use it for tutoring across the year. And our kids have really benefited from that money being focused on them. And I think that's one of the things that we've done incredibly well. So I believe that we have next year's funding for sure, but then the following year is where it will end. Jill, remind me if I believe it ends in the end of June 2024. So we'll really only benefit from one more summer, but then we could benefit if there's still a surplus in that grant from another school year up until the end of June 2024. So we're lucky because we really have been able to provide this program for kids without asking for any financial support from families, in particular things like course recovery, which has been traditionally a cost to the parent.
Anything else on bridge? Okay, thank you. And we can move on and hear about ES1.
All right, so I'm going to turn it over to my two colleagues, Dr. Hanaway and Dr. Shoa. And I know that as soon as I kick it over to Dr. Hanaway, she's going to kick it over to Dr. Shoa, who really has led the efforts for ESY. And anyone who stopped over there on any given day is going to see Dr. Shoa there with a big smile on his face, unloading kids off the school bus, greeting them and making sure they get to the right teacher, and then supporting those teachers all along the way. So I want to acknowledge Dr. Shoa for sure, because I know that the heavy lift does come from him before the program, during the program, and absolutely after the program. So go ahead, Dr. Hanaway, try to beat that.
All right. Well, no, I'm not. I will say this, every August after ESY is over, I asked Tony, or I really confirm with Tony that he still wants to be a central office administrator, because if you watch him all summer during ESY, you're pretty certain he wants to be a building principal, because he's running a school. And I always get nervous and I say, you sure you still want to be in central office? And he said, yes, because Tony is truly the principal of a school across 2 campuses over the summer for extended school year. And the program keeps growing and evolving, which is really the biggest, to me, benefit, because our kids keep evolving. And I don't know that that's the case in a lot of communities. ESY is kind of a cookie cutter type of program in a lot of places, and that's not the case in Richfield. So we're really proud of that. So with that said, I will turn it over to Tony.
Thank you, Dr. Hanaway. Thank you, Dr. DeSilva. I really appreciate all the extraordinarily and undue kind words. I do really have a lot of fun with ESY. It's the one time that I really get to connect on a day-to-day basis with the kiddos. As a central office administrator, I'm sure Ms. Gillette and Dr. DeSilva, Dr. Hanaway could attest. It can, it can feel a little detached sometimes, not getting into the buildings as much as we want to. And so that summer program, even just for 5 weeks, is so meaningful to a school leader, or a district leader, to make those meaningful connections with the kids as they bridge the gap from one year to the next, which I'll talk about in a few minutes. I'm happy to be here this evening. Thank you all for having me. I'll jump right into a very brief slideshow on the extended school year. And for new members, a brief didactic on what ESY is. So John, we can go ahead and jump right into the first slide. What I do want to acknowledge both Dr. DeSilva and Dr. Hanaway too. As much as I design and run the program, I couldn't do it without the commitment of resources. Every time I ask for something for ESY, it's yes, do it. Yes, I think it's a great idea. Go for it. So for the program to be able to fly, there's a lot of questions and answers along the way. So I really do appreciate the never-ending support that I get from central office. So for new members and for those looking for a refresher, what the extended school year is, what we affectionately refer to as ESY, is a provision set forth under the IDEA, which is the federal law that designs special education, basically saying that any student who requires extended school year services during the summer, essentially, as part of their individualized program, should receive it. The state of Connecticut takes it a step farther to say, here are some discussion topics, or a basic framework for the discussion of what could lead a team to recommend ESY as part of a child's individual program each and every summer. So ESY has its own eligibility standard within the realm of the IEP. So a student who has an IEP does not have a automatic eligibility for ESY. The team has to consider certain factors before they recommend it, and that also affects what they do recommend in terms of the program structure, which I'll talk about in a couple of slides. Like Dr. Hanaway said, we essentially run 2 schools, if you will, for ESY. One's our pre-K to 5. Actually, this year it was pre-K to 4, and we put the grades 5 and up in Scotts Ridge, but our pre-K and elementary grades to grade 4 were at Barlow Mountain, which coincidentally has central air conditioning and the pre-K playground. So that makes that a wonderful location for our younger grades program. And a big shout out to an unsung hero there, and that's all the folks at Barlow Mountain Elementary School in the maintenance department. Thanks to Joe and all the folks over there that routinely creatively work around our footprint in the building to keep the building up and running and clean. Services for ESY take a lot of different forms. Like Dr. Hanaway said, we've evolved those over the years. And as I collect feedback, sort of by being on the ground and talking to our teachers, our parents, even the kids, those programs do change a little bit every year in terms of what we offer, how we offer it. And also depending on the type of skills that are targeted. So each student who has ESY recommended in their IEP it's to target specific skills, either in their functional or academic needs. And the services are intended to bridge, and I put them in quotes because I don't want to confuse anyone with Ms. Gillette's presentation, but we do bridge 2 school years with extended school year services to make sure that those skills are maintained from 1 June to the end of August, so that we don't have any kiddos experience that distinct summer slide that we try to prevent. All right, John, you can flip to the next one. All right, so here's a quick grid that shows currently what we offer in Ridgefield for our extended school year services. So starting with itinerant, what we call itinerant services essentially are just one-off services for kiddos who might need specific skills targeted in reading or math or communication with speech and language services or social skills. And those services usually last 20, 30, 45 minutes and are individually scheduled with providers. The Academy is a more structured classroom type program for about 8 to 10 students per grade level, and they occur 3 hours in the AM. And we run that program all the way from rising kindergartners to 11th going into 12th grade. So we run a full, essentially K-12 program for kiddos who need that 3 hours a morning block of reading, writing, and math instruction. And that lasts for 4 weeks. And then RISE, and for those of you who've been on the board for a while, you've probably heard me talk about RISE a lot. RISE is our interdisciplinary intensive program that works on students' functional skills like communication, behavior, sensory, and as well as their academic skills, reading, writing, and math. So that's a 6-hour-a-day program this previous summer for 5 weeks. And the reason that's a little longer is because those students particularly need to fill a broader span of summer to prevent any sort of backslide in skills. So the really big news there is that Best Buddies, which was our newest element of our ESY program that we started last year, continued this year. In which what Best Buddies is a what we call a reverse inclusion model for kiddos who needed social skills instruction over the summer. We decided that instead of just teaching those skills in isolation, we'd make a fun day camp style setting and have peer models visit Barlow Mountain Elementary School, and also this summer, Scotts Ridge Middle School, to run a social skills reverse inclusion program from grades K all the way to 8. So we had 2 full cohorts of Best Buddies running, and it wasn't maybe as fun as Bridge, but I think they had a pretty good time. In fact, because we were right across campus from the Bridge program this summer, thanks to Ms. Gillette and the directors of the Bridge program, we were able to really jigsaw kiddos' summer schedules to make sure the kids who want to participate in ESY by their planning and placement team recommendation and wanted to go to Bridge could experience both. And we even had kids who did Bridge, ESY, and Best Buddies who were our real all-stars and participated in just about everything we had to offer this summer. So the outcome of Best Buddies is that it's a really special opportunity for kids in a cooperative play setting to build social skills while forging friendships with kiddos that they see all year round. So what I tried to do this year was really pair kids by grade level in the same enrolled school that needed that social skills instruction. So hopefully they'll have someone that they recognize when they get back to school Monday, next Monday, and be able to carry those friendships throughout the entire school year. In addition to all that, we doubled the length of Best Buddies, which was great. All right, so key takeaways. The eligibility for ESY was much greater this year than it was last year, and I think we've seen it grow continuously as our eligibility for IEPs has grown. So it's no secret, that's something that we have said to the board for the last few years during our budget cycle, is that our prevalence rate for students classified with a disability has continued to rise, and thereby, as a function of that, we see that our extended school year eligibility within that continues also to grow. I wanted to give a shout out to everyone who lifts the program, not just me, as much as Dr. De Silva and Dr. Hanaway give me all the credit. There are well over 130 individuals that really get all the credit for coming in day after day after day, many of whom teach in Ridgefield during the regular school year, and then love the kids so much, want to do it for another 4 or 5 weeks in the summertime too. So a big shout out to my about 30 related service staff, about 30 special education teachers, about 60 or so instructional paraeducators, and then the nurses, maintenance staff, security staff, central office staff, other school administrators like Tim Salen and Lisa Fries, who graciously host us in their building. Becky Lawson, Christy Salvestrini host us in their building, and so on and so on and so on. There's so many people who make ESY a success. I wish I had an opportunity to name every one of them, but that's our village, right? They lift the entire program just to make it run for 4 or 5 weeks. So it's an enormous effort, but it really has a wonderful outcome to make sure that we don't have kiddos coming back at the end of August having lost all the skills that they worked so hard to achieve during the regular school year. And then lastly, as you can see in that photo, we managed to have a little fun along the way. Like I said, maybe it's not as much fun as Bridge, because when we get down to it, it's a lot of brass tacks. The kids have a lot of hard work to do, a lot of hard academic work, but we find time to get out on the field and kick a ball, or play chase or hide and go seek outside the building, and watch the ducks at Barlow. But we certainly do take the time to appreciate that it's summer, and I want to thank everybody who's involved that helps make it meaningful and educational and fun. So thanks again for having me.
Thank you.
Question?
Thank you for that. Questions? I'm going to start with Tom and then Sean.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Shoa, for that presentation. And kudos to you and your team for doing such a special job for the community. Question, does the district ever invite the budget decision makers to come observe what's going on in the summer, or perhaps have a little videotape or vignette to show the budget decision makers what a valuable program this is, so that when they come time to review the budget and make suggested cuts or whatnot, there's some real tangible evidence for them to see, as opposed to just hear about what the district is doing and what it needs and all the good it does?
I'll answer that, Tom. I think it's a really good idea, especially with programs like Bridge. I'm a little bit more sensitive to ESY because obviously we do have students there with disabilities and we want to protect their privacy. However, I do think what you bring up and what you raise is, and you'll hear a little bit more about that when we talk about our district priorities for the year, is engaging our town partners in ways so that they can not only hear, watch, but also feel the work that's happening in our schools. And I think over the past 2 years, we've become better at communicating that, but I don't know that we've gone that extra step that you raise. And I think that that's an opportunity for us.
Good question. Sean, you were next.
Yeah, thank you for all involved, especially Dr. Shoa. That was enlightening. I always hear great things about the RISE program from the parents who are most involved in it, obviously. Rough order of magnitude, how many children are we touching with this program during the summer?
So you're asking about RISE specifically, or?
No, the whole ESY effort. How many children do we touch during the summer?
Quite a few. And so the fun part, one of the fun parts about ESY is that because we run it for such a long period of time, folks who go away on vacation still have services waiting for them when they get back. So even for a student who may not attend the entire length of the program, we do serve, this summer it was over 200.
Wow.
Yeah. And I would say that the average enrollment per day may have not have been close to that number. Like I was sort of alluding to, that there's,
of course,
a lot of ups and downs over the course of the summer as folks sneak away on vacation. But
yeah.
all told, we held seats for over.
We touched 200 kids this summer. That's awesome. Thank you.
Sure.
Ina.
Again, I'm going to make the comment. I wish I was quicker on the buzzer, but I I just wanted to echo what Tom said. I think it's a great idea. I do, as you know, education is organic, it keeps changing, and we are adapting to every need, the needs of the kids. And I think it's very important when we come to budget season that when we go to the other boards, they understand when we meet that our kids' needs are changing, our kids' needs are evolving, because at this time, sometimes I feel that these are just words and people don't understand the comprehensive nature of how these needs can be, how these needs are met. And so I completely agree with Tom. I think it's a great suggestion. I think when the time arises, Dr. De Silva, I think we should do everything we can to start these conversations even much before, not as that late, as much as we can, so that the boards who are part of this discussion beyond us and the community understands when we talk about educating all children, equity for all children, equality for all children, what that really means.
If I could add, I have actually two ideas that might be helpful with this regard. I always harp on about the preschool and looking at the preschool as a predictive. And much of our preschool program, not 100%, but much of our preschool program is heterogeneous in terms of population of students with and without exceptionalities. So that might be a starting point because, you know, you walk into a room, it's a room full of kids. And then the second idea is we've gotten such positive feedback from our Best Buddies participants, not necessarily the students who might have been eligible, but the students who wanted to participate as the Best Buddies, and the impact that the program had on them, because it's really more than it's of course we're focused on students and the services they need, but the larger impact on the community is that mushroom effect that comes from something like Best Buddies. And I think that also might be equally as powerful and touch a much broader population as well.
Good point.
Other questions on ESY? No, thank you very much. It was a great presentation. It's great to hear about the program and how well it did this year. Thank you.
Thanks again, everyone.
Dr. De Silva, request for bond resolution.
So two items that I'm going to speak to. The first is connected to the safety project. So you might remember that I came to the board when we identified that we were going to have a surplus with our insurance money, and hope to go to the Board of Selectmen to ask for their support in using that additional funding for security projects that were already approved by our capital. So you might remember we went to the Board of Selectmen for that. And we also went to the Board of Selectmen to use additional funds that we might have from this year's budget to support playgrounds, or the start of supporting playgrounds, as the playgrounds are primarily the town's responsibility. So I think I needed a visual for this. However, our Board of Finance did a good job of helping me understand the process. So we did go to the Board of Selectmen. We got their support, ultimately went to the Board of Finance for both projects. We did not receive their support then, but we did receive a good idea, which was to come back to the Board of Ed and ask the Board of Ed to support a request to the Board of Selectmen for funding, specifically additional funds to be used specifically for the purpose of security, putting the playgrounds aside because they had a different perspective there. So we did that. We went back to the Board of Selectmen, who then gave us support again, who then sent us back to the Board of Finance, of which we did, and we got their support. And now they're sending us back to the Board of Selectmen on September 21st. To then go to a town meeting, I think, to get the approval. And it looks like that's all going to happen. And if you remember, it was the bollards primarily and the vestibule at Branchville, because we did not have enough funds within the originally requested capital funds. So I do need a visual to get through it, but the Dave Ulmer and Mike Redger did a nice job of helping me along there. But we are at the stage now where we will go to a town meeting. We have requested that the Board of Selectmen have a town meeting, and it will happen on, I believe it's September 21st, for the town to vote on the additional funding for those security projects. And thanks to Joe, I think we will get well underway once we receive that approval. The second project was around playgrounds. And so, as I said, the town is primarily responsible for the playgrounds and the improvements that happen within those spaces. We obviously are responsible for the experience that children have and the accessibility needs that relate to that. We've had an amazing partnership with the town, and that's with the first selectman, town Jake Muller, Tony Phillips from social worker, this town social worker. We've communicated well. Again, Dr. Hanaway, Joe, and a few others that really have been incredibly supportive. And so we've identified a priority list for those projects connected again to accessibility needs and what we see with the students' experience. All of that said, again, the Board of Finance was not opposed to having a plan for playgrounds. They just did not want it going through this particular structure. That said, there was a bond proposal, and I don't know all the political logistics, but there is a bond proposal, and it looks like Ridgefield will receive $400,000 towards accessibility for our playgrounds. So that's great news because it will certainly give us a head start. And the better news is that we've already done the heavy lift, again, thanks to Dr. Hanaway and the team, including Tony Phillips, the heavy lift in identifying which schools will be our priority when it comes to accessibility. So you'll be hearing more as we learn more. So right now we know that there's this funding, we know that it's been approved, and we know the amount. In terms of next steps, we will fill you in. So that's where we are with just a quick update on the security projects and where we are with the playgrounds. And I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you, Dr.
On that
DeSilva.
process, just not on the process, because I may have Rachel or someone to help me with that.
Do we have any questions on that? Sounded pretty comprehensive to me, Dr. DeSilva. No, okay, we can move on to COVID.
All right, so I will turn this one over to Dr. Hanaway. She's going to briefly summarize the COVID update that we have for our faculty and staff, and certainly our families as we return to school on August 29th and 30th.
All right. Let me pull up my notes here. Okay, so I'm glad to say that this COVID update might be the shortest that I think I've done thus far. So this is progress. I'm very excited about this. Okay, so in the, I believe the third week of July, the state of Connecticut through the Department of Health and the State Department of Education released two documents. One was they're calling it, let me say the right word, Healthy Learning Return. And so what they have included is essentially guidance to districts launching into healthy learning, it's called. So there's a guidelines document, and then they have a separate document that includes operational strategies. The vast majority of what's included in these documents is recommendations for schools to absorb and digest at their local level, and then make decisions for what they think to be most appropriate. As far as the guidance, what is most pertinent, it's a very brief document, but what is most pertinent is a few main points. One, that they emphasize the importance of vaccinations. Second is to maximize in-person learning with what they call symptom awareness and at-home testing, which I'll talk about in a little bit. And then there's also a discussion of use of possible or available prevention tools. And that has to do with monitoring your local levels within the community. So the main points that I'm going to highlight are the impacts on our individual protocols within Ridgefield. So I'm just going to hit the main parts that that we have discussed as part of our internal group that has been going for over 2 years now, and share out where we have landed. First and foremost, we will not be utilizing the available prevention and mitigation strategies that they have included, which includes mostly going back to that red, yellow, and green measuring where you are in the community and adjusting from there. We don't think that that's necessary right now. We will not be conducting, and as they include is not recommended, we will not be conducting contact tracing. as the main strategies that they emphasize is to vaccinate and to monitor symptoms so that kids can test at home and attend school as much in person as possible. We will continue to update our COVID tracker so that the community is aware of what the reported cases are like in the schools, because we are still going to be reporting cases to the Department of Health. So we will be providing reminders to our parent community to please continue to notify your school nurse if there is a positive COVID case. Masks continue to be optional at school. The biggest change is that students and staff may attend in person so long as they have mild respiratory symptoms and have tested negative. That is one of the biggest changes in the guidance. And our schools are prepared if a student has mild respiratory symptoms and they're tested negative to that they are permitted to attend school. If a student presents as having mild respiratory symptoms and no fever at school, they may still be sent to the health office and they will be sent home with a kit, test kit. And so long as they test negative and their symptoms do not worsen, they can continue to attend school. We are going to have an influx. The state is providing test kits to public school districts so that we can disseminate them to students so that they can test in order to continue attending school, should they have had an exposure or should they have had mild symptoms. We're going to continue with the alcohol-based sanitization and continued hand washing as we have been. We will continue all our ventilation and purging protocols that the DPH had outlined. That has not been recommended to change. And we are still implementing the protocol for return if somebody is positive for COVID. So the way we left the school year is how we're starting with that, which means if somebody tests positive for COVID, we start counting those days. And so long as on the 6th day or after the person's symptoms have improved, they may come back to school, but they have to be masked until day 10. And that is part of the recommended protocols. And then the last biggest piece has to do with our ability to support students who are actively sick with COVID or students who have tested positive with COVID. We will not be providing remote instruction in those cases because we are maximizing in-person learning. So somebody with mild symptoms can still attend school. And if somebody has significant symptoms, then they're out sick and they should be homesick and they would be treated like we would any other student who's out sick. Susie, did I miss any of the major points?
Just one piece that I might add is just as just a point that's a little bit different than last year. Last year, when we had students that were not actually sick, but were in quarantine and could participate, would have a remote learning teacher. You might remember we had substitutes at the elementary level, and then students dualed into classes. That's no longer recognized by the State Department as an educational experience. And so that is something that we are not doing this year. So children that are home with COVID, whether or not they feel symptomatic or not, they will not have access to remote learning because it's actually not included as a school day. In addition to that, though, they will have, just like if they were homesick or some other event, the teachers will send home packets of work if they're able to do that, right? If they're sick and they're not able, that's fine as well. So that's not something that we included budgetarily, and it's not something that we included programmatically because it's no longer considered a school day for students. Mm-hmm. The other piece, and that's for all student populations. The other piece that's just important to note is that the state has opened up an opportunity for school districts to order more PPE and COVID test kits. So as you know, you probably have them at home. Many of the COVID test kits actually have expired. Those have been extended for 6 months. But if you actually open them, and I'm not exactly sure how this happened, but if you actually open the test kit and inside, many of the tests actually have a different expiry date than what's on the box already. So if you open it up, you might notice, it's not the case with all of them, but you might notice that some of them have an expiry date of 2024, even though the box itself may say July of 2022. So take a look at those, but either way, the state has allowed us to order more, and Aaron, I think, ordered over 6,000 kits. So there should be plenty of test kits to give to kids, to their families, should they be experiencing any symptoms and want to be sure before they return to school. In addition, as I mentioned before, with PPE, masks are coming our way, N95s. So for students or faculty that feel more comfortable and would like accessibility to that, it doesn't look like there'll be a shortage of that and across any of our schools. And we still, quite frankly, have plenty of test kits from last year as well. So I think we're in a pretty good place there. And as Dr. Hanaway shared, the reason we're keeping the COVID tracker is because we're still continuing to inform, or required actually to inform, the State Department of Ed of any test, of any students who test positive that are reported to us. And so we're hopeful that parents will report accurately, obviously keep their children home so that we can provide that information to the State Department. And just as a way of keeping our parents informed, the tracker will be back up on the website. We took it down for the summer. So it will be back up on the website and will be updated as frequently as Aaron sees appropriate to do that, which is, I think, daily is how he was doing it the last time. So my guess is it will be the same, which will give parents information if they're looking to see what's happening in their schools or what's happening across a classroom. And certainly it allows us to see if there are any patterns that we might be noticing. Just one other piece is we are still expecting, I think, some answers to questions that we put out there with the State Department in an early call. So leave it to Ridgefield to stump the State Department with our questions. So I think there are two remaining questions. One actually is because originally they had shared, as Dr. Hanaway mentioned, the different community rates. And when it got to red, for example, one of the recommendations in that model at the time was to go back to hybrid learning, but yet the State Department doesn't actually recognize dual teaching or remote learning. So it doesn't exactly work. So that was one of the questions. And we had another one that I think is still out there, but we're hopeful that you remembered.
No, I just thought of other things I want to make sure I say, that's all.
Okay. I didn't remember the other question, Dr. Hanaway, so I was trying.
I don't remember the other
It was
question.
actually, it was yours. The second one was mine. So I did remember my stinger, but either way, we still haven't received those answers. And so hopefully we'll receive that if that even impacts us in the coming weeks. Dr. Hanaway, what were you going to share?
So I just want to emphasize that the notion of quarantining is now changing. So that is going to feel very different. And I think in particular for our elementary families, because the quarantine rates were always higher, usually at the elementary level, proportionately. So that is going to feel different, as is the class notifications. We are going to continue. That's part of the reason also that we're continuing to update the tracker. And really the larger piece there is we want to, as Susie said, give families updated information about levels of COVID in their schools. But because the quarantine requirement is now different, the necessity for the classroom notifications is not the same.
I think we got it all.
Yes.
Do we have any questions for them? Amy.
Sorry, Liz, I'm sure I'm just missing exactly what you said. I just wanted a little more clarification. If you test positive and you have no symptoms, you can still go to school?
No.
No. Okay.
No.
'Cause I thought at some point you said.
No, if you're negative, but you have mild respiratory symptoms, which is no fever, runny nose, slight cough, you can, as long as you test negative, you can attend school.
Okay.
But the key there is you have to test and you have to test negative. So you can't just come to school with mild respiratory symptoms. You have to have had taken a test.
Right. And then it could be a cold. We don't know what it is. As long as there's no positive test saying you definitely have COVID. So if you do test positive, then you are home for at least 6 days. And then if you want to come back, you put a mask on until day 10.
Correct.
Okay, so regardless of symptoms, no symptoms, if there's a positive. you're good.
Correct. And that, yeah, because that recommended protocol from the Department of Health has not changed.
Okay, thank you.
Amy, thanks for that question. I misheard that as well. Rachel? No? Other questions? Thank you for the update. I hope it goes smoother than it has for the last few years. And we can move on to policies. These are all second reads. Rachel, you want to take us through?
Sure, yes, these are all second reads, all with the recommendations as heard input last meeting. So first policy, I move that the Board of Education approve policy 1330, use of building and grounds.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Tina? Any comments? Being none, all those in favor, please raise your hands. Unanimous. Thank you. Motion carries.
Next, I move that the Board of Education approve policy 6164.3, encourage completion of FAFSA.
Second. Selena? Any comments? Being none, all those in favor, please raise your hands. Unanimous again. Thank you.
Next one, I move that the Board of Education approve policy 6172.1, gifted and talented student program.
Second. Tina? Any comments?
I have one, Jonathan. It's so
Sure.
minor. So just in the first sentence, we just need to put the Ridgefield Board of Education and then in parentheses, the board. That's all.
Okay.
Sorry about that. Missed it.
All right. Anything else? All those in favor of approving as amended, please raise your hands. Unanimous, thank you. And last one.
I move that the Board of Education approve policy 6172.2, advanced course or program and challenging curriculum.
Second. Selena. Comments? All those in favor, please raise your hands. Unanimous again. Thank you very much. All motions carry. And we can move on to the information items, starting with enrollment.
Okay, thank you, Jonathan. So before you will see our enrollment information as of August 18th. The caveat is this is not an official enrollment report that always occurs on October 1st, but what you'll see before you is every November, our demographer makes a projection of our enrollment K-12. And so that is listed there. Then on August 18th, we show what's currently in our Power School system of who is registered and is in our system to start school next week. So there will be changes to that as families do not attend on August 29th. And we do monitor that enrollment for the first 5 days. But that currently is what we have in Power School and how we will staff our schools for the first day of school. So you will see there are some swings between 20 under to 12 over. The demographer, as we've talked about over the years, does not project placement decisions such as 18 to 22 or outplacement. And so you'll see right now we are currently over by 93 students. That will change once we start school and have our official numbers on October 1st. Are there questions right now about that?
Just one question from me. The projection number here is what we used for the budgeting for this year?
Yes, that we are given that in November. So that is the basis of the budget process for sure.
Any questions? Sean?
Yeah, I know we danced around and through this one last year, but the 18 and 22 and outplaced numbers don't mean much if we don't know what last year's was. We don't know if this is an uptrend, a downtrend, sideways. If we don't get a projected number, obviously, it would be helpful to know what last year's number was.
Sure. So those projected numbers should, in theory, be based in the K-12. But yes, I can talk to Susie about how we report previous enrollment numbers so you know those trends.
I know with FERPA and things we can't identify, I get that part, but it would be helpful just to know if there's a trend that we're missing.
Okay.
So it's slightly different than the projected piece, Sean, but I think what you're asking for, we can still give you based on what we had last year. It'll give you a sense of, are we trending up? Are we trending down?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I asked the exact same thing last year.
I think,
Yep, and I think we reported it in the next meeting, but I don't think we
I
included.
think it took us
part of
2
the-
turns of the crank to get there, but yes.
I think several cranks.
Anything else? Okay, staffing update.
Okay, so we always show you a history of the data that we receive in my office concerning who is retiring, resigning, leaving for different purposes, and then by category who we have processed for hiring. So since the last update was in June, you'll see a longer list at this meeting. So if there's questions about any of those, let me know.
Again. Sean?
Yep, your mic is cutting in and out, Jonathan, by the way. No question, just a comment that I went to the new teacher orientation and I can't believe how many roles we filled. Dr. D, you said we only had a couple open spots after all this in this market, this climate. That is exceptional and should be commended.
And we met exceptional people. We had a few board members join us on that day, and truly, I feel very, very lucky. The climate and culture of Ridgefield right now is somewhere where teachers want to come, and they're not necessarily picking other places. So all of you, everyone should feel incredibly proud because everyone's a part of it, creating that culture. Our job is to nurture it for sure, but that heavy lifting came from others. So we're incredibly pleased.
Anything else? Okay, we can move on to the correspondence reports, starting with public comment. Rachel, do we have anyone signed up?
I don't see anyone at this time, Jonathan, so I can move ahead then to our correspondence report.
Terrific.
We have received 6 emails and 1 letter since our last Board of Education meeting. 1 email regarding a public record request, 1 email regarding RPS athletics, 1 email regarding a Board of Ed meeting date, 1 email in support of block schedules and not in support of changing start times, 1 email regarding the COVID-19 vaccine, 1 email regarding COVID-19 protocols, and 1 letter of endorsement from the DTC. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And at that point, we are going to move to another executive. Tina.
Dr. De Silva had her hand. I was just.
I'm sorry.
I did. It was a last minute, but we're still hiring for van drivers and substitute van drivers. And there's no better place to be other than driving a van. So please, anyone who's interested, who's listening tonight at 8:53, we need you.
They're air conditioned, right?
They're air conditioned. They're brand new. They're super.
There you go.
Super cute.
They smell like a new car.
Okay. At that, now we can move. We're going to move into another executive session if we have a motion to do so.
Sure. I move that the Board of Education convene an executive session for the purpose of discussing school security, inviting Dr. Susie De Silva, Dr. Liz Hanaway, Ms. Corey Gillette, Ms. Karen Dewing, Mr. Joe Moritz, and Richfield Police Chief Jeff Kreitz.
Do I have a second for that motion? Tina? All those in favor? Okay, we're going to move ahead into executive session. Dr. De Silva, are we staying put or are we moving?